The party reaches an elevator and rides up into the non-fiction complex, a barren, desolate, and quiet place. Compared to the fiction complex, this place is dark and almost entirely devoid of any color. Most of the people here seem sad, quiet, and almost entirely hopeless. Now, I'll be straightforward and say that I have no clue what kind of enemies would patrol this area. I thought of some ideas, but nothing ever really worked with me. So, yeah. Make up your own enemies, I guess. Either way, this is the first time Ceroba is able to fight, so here's how she works. She functions as a lesser healer to Kanako, but a better fighter. Her attacks hit harder, and as well to it, she has an attack in her magic menu called Fury Beam, which is her hardest hitting attack. But, to make her balanced, her healing isn't nearly as good as Kanako's. So you'll likely be using more healing items than using actual magic to heal in this area. Along the path, you'll find that the elevators and contraptions for this complex are almost entirely broken down, and so, most of the puzzles you'll be doing are based upon the idea of you having to fix them. At some point, Ceroba will say, Once you pass through the complex and reach its peak, you'll not only find the bridge back over to the lounge, where from there you can do a little backtracking if you want to, but I'm not going to go over what's available if you do that, at least not in this video, but you'll also find a lift at the peak of the complex that will take you to the scrapyard. The party hops onto the lift. Everything goes quiet as the tram stops, and the party arrives at the scrapyard. Walking around, the area is pretty quiet. The only sound that can be heard is the whistling of the wind. Countless metal scraps and piles create simple paths for the party to follow. Walking forward into a narrow section, suddenly, Worm returns, with a rougher but definitely tougher mech. Rolling on tank wheels, with a machine gun attachment and a rocket launcher in the back. This fight starts off as literally just a beatdown on the party, as the attacks he uses have the same functionality as that of the Axis fight, where you're stuck to the wall, and if the attacks hit said wall, you take damage. As you've probably guessed at this point, this fight is like the Axis fight. You can use the trash can lid to defend yourself from the bullets. However, unlike the Axis fight, you can also parry some of the attacks with the yellow outline. Parrying these attacks back to Worm will slowly wear down his mech until inevitably it shuts down. Ceroba then picks up rifle and holds them in an optimal throwing position. She then throws Wifle at the head of the mech, and Wifle collides with Worm, grabbing him in the process as the mech explodes. Wifle lands on his face as Worm gently lands in Wifle's arms. Worm pauses, taking all this in. Then a blush appears on his face. Ceroba then summons her staff and, like a golf club, swings it at Worm, sending him flying into the distance. Wifle gets up and walks over to the destroyed mech. Wifle rummages through the mech and pulls out a long, cylindrical weapon. Wifle pauses and checks out the weapon. After passing through the scrapyard, we arrive at a quiet, ambient place. There's some kind of church here. In front of it, a robed figure with a chest to their left. Approaching the robed figure, it turns out he's a sort of shopkeeper, selling goods to keep the church open. Approaching the gazebo, a small, round figure awaits. The figure gets up and turns to face them, his single eye glowing red. swings his staff, and a golden magic barrier traps them within the gazebo. This is a very different kind of battle. Rather than anything else, the goal of this fight is to encourage Holy Joe's preachings. The attacks he will send at you aren't that hard to evade, and as such, the real goal is figuring out how to respond to each one of Holy Joe's speeches. In the Act menu, you will have the actions Praise, Detest, and Inquire. You need to use these actions accordingly to Holy Joe's speeches. And now, I will actually give you his entire speech for your enjoyment, along with the corresponding responses for each. You are given a yes or no prompt. Choosing no ends the fight, and you lose your chance to access this chapter's secret boss. But saying yes... Deeper into the forest, the party reaches a mechanical elevator. Heading up, they reach a massive cubic facility with electric pylons and large walls. The party enters the facility. It's a series of dark, cold corridors lit ominously by red lights. Whiteful and Rowan draw their weapons and get ready to dash through. This starts this chapter's stealth section. Now I know what you're thinking. Toby Fox himself tried to include one of these in Chapter 3, but it was never finished due to how it broke the pacing. Well, I have a solution. Rather than slowing the player down by forcing them to sneak, it's optional. You see, this stealth section revolves around you evading the cybersecurity, a bunch of enemies that patrol the halls with limited vision. If they happen to see you, an alarm will play and they'll turn into a bunch of bullets that you'll have to evade in the overworld. But it can be dodged. As such, you can sneak through this section to not take a risk and be hit, or you can try and Leroy Jenkins this and just rush in and hope you don't die. I wonder if anyone's going to get that reference. Either way, here are the party's reactions to both choices. From here, the three get in the elevator and try to ride it up to the 3rd floor, but are stopped at the 2nd floor as the power goes out. Welcome to round 2 of stealth, now in the dark. It's just more of the same until you reach a long, empty hall. Slowly, oh so slowly, a figure walks their way to the center of the room. Any second now. Almost there. Oh, and wait. There they are. The figure begins to search through their many pockets to find their whip. As they do this, the three pass them and reach the breaker. After a quick puzzle, the power is back on. Heading back to the Elder Task Manager, we find the previously dark and empty hall has many overfed tasks lined up in kennels on the wall. The Task Manager is now fast asleep. Reaching the elevator once again, we ride up to the 3rd floor finally. Looking around, you can find a vending machine that can dispense some healing items, and a conveniently placed save point beside an oddly ominous large door. The party heads into the room to confront Admin. Suddenly, a fully roboticized Kanako jumps down onto the scene. This fight is almost identical to the Ceroba fight, only now there are multiple targets per safe shot action, and the attacks are much faster but deal less damage. There is also an Easter egg you can trigger here if you intentionally miss the targets multiple times. then attacks Rowan, which immediately knocks them down. Assuming you didn't do that, after hitting all of the targets, the roboticized Kanako falls down. Sparks begin to emit from the machine, and a whirring begins. Whiteful swings his pen and shoots out. As the ink reaches Admin, it phases right through as Admin's figure becomes glitchy and distorted. Kanako doesn't hesitate for a second to run up and hug her mother. The two stay quiet for a moment, comfortable in each other's embrace. The two finally release from the hug. The four line up, and you're free to head into the elevator again. Reaching the top floor, we arrive in an ominous lobby. A large door stands before the party. A blue save point stands before the door. Once the party is ready, they approach the door. During your first turn, you'll find that no matter how much damage you deal, what actions you pick, or anything at all, admin still stands. Admin raises his 4 hands, and a massive red energy ball begins to form over his head. He then throws the massive ball towards the floor at lightning pace. Suddenly, Ceroba steadies herself, and a diamond appears in front of the 4. The ball then suddenly shoots back at Admin Neo, completely shocking him and overloading his systems. Admin then gets out of his now powered-down mech. Suddenly, the mouse unit comes down and grabs Rifle. The hologram disappears as the mouse unit dashes off with Rifle. From here, you are now free to explore the entire Dark World to your contentment. But I'm not going to go over every little interaction you can do from here. Rather, I'm just going to stick to the overarching narrative. While exploring the facility, you can find Admin's room. It's rather small, several books are tossed around messily on the ground, and there's a mini fridge plugged up on the floor. You can also find a digital log on Admin's desk. Walking over to Admin's bedside, you'll find a capsule in a diamond-shaped golden jewel inside. From there, you can now go into the church. It's dark, quiet, lit only by a few candles. Walking past the empty pews, you reach the preacher's stand. There, you'll find the crystal. Walking outside, you'll find both Holy Joe and Robe are gone. Returning to the lounge, you can now have a proper talk with Boof, who previously scoffed away any attempts to talk with you. Heading across the bridge you had previously fought Ceroba on, now repaired after it was destroyed in the conflict, we enter the Tree of Knowledge. This is a rather short area. All you need to do is repair the broken elevator and either take it up to the top floor, or you can follow Holy Joe's instructions and enter the roots. Arriving in the depths of the tree, Rowan stops for a moment. The two crystals begin to glow, and Holy Joe begins to rise. Holy Joe prepares to attack, when suddenly Ceroba's pain strikes Holy Joe, and he leers back. Welcome to the second secret boss. Holy Joe's attacks are based on light and bizarre shapes and figures that resemble things that one would typically see on a biblically accurate angel depiction. All the while, his battle gimmick is based on that one attack Martlet uses where she uses her wings to push you down against the wall of the battle arena. This fight would add on to that gimmick by having the wind change directions and push you in very strange angles. To win this battle, you actually just need to break the two crystals on his left and right by dealing enough damage to them, as Holy Joe himself cannot take any damage. Once the crystals are broken, you can now either attack him directly, or in the act menu, you can try and comfort him. You also now have access to Ceroba's main boss tool, being Barrier, which gives you a temporary shield that can take a single hit of damage. Kanako's action of Brace also returns for this fight. The fight ends after 6 turns of comforting Holy Joe, or if enough damage is dealt. Here are the differences for each. Leaving the boss arena, Robe is standing just outside. We now head up the elevator. We finally arrive at the apex of the tree. The null fountain flows freely ahead, and in the way stands admin and the mouse unit. In the mouse unit's grasp is Weifel, who looks rather unhappy about the situation. This fight is, once again, an attack to win. You have no other choice but to fight them. Any and all actions have no effect. Phase 1 is a simple, gimmickless fight. Simply deal enough damage. Suddenly, the floor will begin to shake and clouds will darken as the fountain begins to collapse. At this point, the mouse unit jumps into the fray, sending attacks of its own. From here, it will also start to take hits for admin. However, once enough damage is dealt, the mouse unit will drop Weifel, and in a panic, pick up a random party member. At this point, you can either attack admin to progress the fight, or try and deal enough damage to the mouse unit to get a better team. Just like in the previous chapter's main boss, and in Holy Joe's fight, everyone has access to their boss packs, as I'm calling them, to provide status effects. The fight ends whenever admin has taken enough damage, and the mouse unit drops the last party member. Suddenly, Worm comes in. Then Boof comes in. Worm responds. Boof retaliates. At this point, one of the Know-Its comes in. Then another Know-Its comes in. Then another. And another. And another. The crowd begins to clamor as Admin turns to face the fountain. The three dash off towards the fountain. once again, have all of Eastville to explore. Checking the front desk of the library, you can find a small figurine of a worm sticking out of an apple. Checking out the shelves in the fiction section, and the books in the non-fiction section, checking out the lost and found beside the non-fiction section, interacting with the papier-mâché tree at the center, approaching the computer, looking at the religious section, leaving the library and moving to the left slightly, you reach the flower bed. Heading west and reaching Martlet's house. Heading south, you reach Dalv's house, and this time, he's actually outside, interacting with him. Heading west from here, you'll find a gate that was always here. I did not make this addition to Eastville because I suddenly felt like it. And passing through it, you reach the south side of Eastville. Heading to the church in this area, to the west of the church, you'll find a cemetery. Setting foot on it, walking in, most of the tombstones are of people you probably wouldn't recognize. But there's one grave, with several colorful flowers surrounding it. It's quiet here, with only the sounds of the birds chirping. You can leave whenever you feel like it, and when you do, Kanako will once again wind up behind you. Heading further west, you reach a series of apartments. Knocking on most of the doors gives no response. However, approaching the last apartment door, leaving the apartments and heading south, we reach the school. Approaching the doors, Interacting with one of the playground sets. Walking around the south end, you reach an electricity transformer, and a worker standing around beside it. Heading back up north, you reach a statue. Heading north, we reach a small park. There isn't much to see here other than a cool tree, so heading back north to Dalf's house and past it to the east, we reach the town hall again. On one of the columns, Slurpee can be seen with their tongues stuck on it. Heading inside, we can once again talk to the honeydew shopkeeper, who I've decided to name Rosa for the sake of simply giving this character a name. Rosa quickly lays her head on the desk. Leaving, you can try to head to the Ketsukane house, only for Kanako to say, Heading north and then east from the Ketsukane house, we reach Sunnyside Farm once again. Christina, Starlo's mom, is inside this time, which you can't access since the door is locked. The barn is also, once again, locked. Solomon can be found beside the field of corn. Interacting with the scarecrow, interacting with the cherry blossom tree, Heading west, and then north from the farm, we reach the police station. Entering it, we find Ceroba and Starlo mid-conversation. as she begins to leave, she notices Rowan and Kanako. Interacting with Starlo. Starlo turns his monitor around. Leaving the station and heading to the apartment complex. I still find it quite simple, actually. You can interact with the doors again. Leaving the apartment and walking into Bilador's up north, we can talk to the bouncer once again. Talking to El Bilador first. Walking down onto the dance floor. After a few seconds, Rowan walks to the right side of it as Kanako takes the left. After a few more seconds, Rowan begins to dance as Kanako watches. After a few more seconds, Kanako joins in, trying to match Rowan's moves as best as she can. If you want to enjoy more of this visual, then go watch They Vibin'. As for now, let's move on. We move past Martlet and Ceroba, who are outside of the diner, and move to the west, and to the sign. Interacting with it. Finally, we can head to the diner and talk to Saroba and Martlet. A few changes have been made to the diner since the last chapter, the addition of a pool table and arcade machine of Mew Mew Love Blaster 2 being the most notable. Anyway, we now see the four seated in a booth, drinks handed out already. There's a silence in the air for a moment before Kanako wraps her arms around her mother. Dinah then walks back into the kitchen.